Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Scenic Route Astrology. I'm with my friend today, Sarah France from Solar Cross Astrology. And today we're going to be talking about Mars through all 12 zodiac signs and a special insight onto the upcoming 8-month transit of Mars and Gemini. It's going to retrograde for a few months, and we're looking at this like a very big transit that's going to affect us for the remaining half of the year and into 2023. And I wanted Sarah to come on, especially because she is an Aries ruled gal. So she's very Martian in her nature and she understands Mars energy. So I wanted to have her on to have this discussion with everybody and help you guys understand how maybe your Mars is expressed in your chart, so that when you're going through this Mars retrograde cycle coming up, you'll actually know how to work and navigate through the energy based on your Mars sign, and then also based on what you might be getting from the Mars retrograde in Gemini. So hi, Sarah. Thank you.
Hi, Makayla. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really excited.
Good. I'm glad. And welcome back to the States because you've been traveling.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, for everybody who doesn't know you yet, especially on my channel, a couple of questions, maybe how you got into astrology and the meaning behind your name, because I really love the name that you picked.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So how'd you get in?
Okay. Yeah. So essentially, astrology has been something that's been like in my periphery ever since I was born. My aunt on my father's side, she has been consulting a professional astrologer for like the last 30 years. And when I was born, her gift to my parents was like a hand-drawn natal chart from her astrologer. So my natal chart was like hanging in my room my entire childhood, and I never understood it, but it always interested me, obviously. And then I think around like age 13, 14, I started slowly looking things up and just doing my own research. And then I think around like age 17, I remember, I think I like started getting into more technical parts of chart delineation. And I was looking at like house rulers and the certain houses and realizing just how nuanced and detailed astrology can be. So at that point, I was like, whoa, I need to know more about this, and started reading books. And then while I was in college, I decided that actually I was going to school for languages, and I was like, I don't know if I want to be a translator. And I realized, oh, people do astrology professionally. So I started taking professional courses. Originally, I started with Carney Soar. She has a school named the Holistic Astrology School. She's based out of Israel. And then I started working with Kelly Surtees, and just, as you know, like an astrological education never ends. It's constant and continuous. And if passion's there, you just live and breathe it every day.
Yeah, I agree with you. So how did you come up with Solar Cross Astrology?
I'm actually really happy that you're asking me this question, because the name of my business means a lot to me. I'm not wearing it today, but I normally wear it. It was inspired by a necklace that was given to me. It is my father's necklace that was given to me after he passed away. My mom and dad, when they got married, instead of getting rings, they got matching necklaces of a solar cross. And when I started learning more about astrology and realizing that the solar cross is an extremely important symbol, I was like, wow, I need to name my businesses. So
that's amazing. Yeah, I love that. I love when our names have, I would hope that people choose names that have meaning behind their business because it's your brand, so I don't even know why I felt like I needed to ask you that this morning, but I was like, I just felt it. So I'm glad that I did.
Yeah, nobody's ever really asked me about it, but thank you. I'm always happy to share.
You're welcome. So you come from a Hellenistic approach, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Which I'm super excited about too, because I felt like it was really Gemini fashion for
Mm,
us to talk about Mars retrograde Gemini, but have difference of opinions. Because
yeah.
to me, astrology, it's funny that you went to school for language too, because you just ended up learning astrology as a language. So you ended up still doing that.
Yeah.
But we have all these different approaches that we come in at, and I think we find our niche. And I love to learn from all different types of astrology and like bring it into my evolutionary approach.
Mhm.
I'm very interested in Vedic too and stuff. I just haven't had the time to dabble into their techniques, but having you come in from a Hellenistic approach and come in and talk about this energy, I'm excited. So I'm glad that you said yes and that we can.
Yeah, of course. I think you're totally right. Astrology isn't like a one size fits all thing. I
Mhm.
think it's really, I think that's one of the most beautiful things about it is that it's just so diverse. And I personally enjoy kind of cherry picking like my favorite things from different traditions. So
Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Okay, so I guess we should start with helping people out understand more about their Mars.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. And I guess we'll just start right from the beginning of the zodiac, which is Aries.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I would align from an evolutionary perspective with somebody with Mars in Aries that they're coming at this energy. And I guess it actually helps to talk about what Mars might be too in the chart for somebody. It's a personal planet. So it's, in my opinion, help serving the sun and the sun's purpose through your assertive action and the way that you play out your desires, if you will, through action and through movement and bodily movement. But
Mhm.
also it could be like psychological or emotional or mental, depending on what sign we're putting it in on that perspective. But I also consider Mars, the planet of what makes you want to fight for something or
Mhm.
be courageous or stick up for something, or defend yourself, if you
Mhm.
will, in certain environments. How would you add on to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really great jumping off point for Mars energy. Mars, like if we take it back to the very basics and just look at the glyph for Mars, it's the arrow pointing outward, right? So it's us moving away from where we were before and doing something new and continuing on this upward linear motion, right? It's like the upward trajectory with that arrow pointing upwards and outwards. It's also, I think, Mars has a lot to do with the act of cutting cords, cutting ties, and that's where this signification with like decision making and taking action comes from with Mars because of its ability to say this and not that. So like people who have a really strong Mars in their chart tend to be very decisive, right? And know what they want and know how to go out and get it. And then, yeah, I would say exactly what you were saying, just how we go about taking action on the sun's creative desires,
Yeah.
right? Which I think is why also it has this signification with sexuality and sexual desire, because it's the action of creating life, right? So
Yeah.
life being the sun and then Mars being the way that we create it.
Yeah. Perfect. Actually, perfect. Because to me, too, Mars in Aries, which is considered the traditional rulership for Mars, is about taking an initiative and moving out in a direction and stepping in a direction. I guess Mars in Aries, like not exactly knowing where, like what's on the other end of that, but just going for it anyway. So like
Right.
this instinctual nature to like just go for something, like an impulsive feeling around that.
Yeah, totally. When I think Mars and Aries, I really think like flying by the seat of your pants, like like not really thinking too far in the future, but just feeling this instinctual impulse and acting on it. Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, it's definitely like um it's the energy that's got to kickstart everything. So it's got this really strong force that can burn out quite quickly. But the impact of that, I think, on Mars energy is that it gives a really strong impulse to take action, even prior to thought. So there's not really that amount of patience needed sometimes to like really think about, I guess, the domino effect of your actions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mars and Aries.
Yeah. And I like that too. I think that if somebody has that in their chart, it's really amazing because you kind of can be like the pioneer for change. And a shadow quality of that would be like the fear of just kind of going on that impulse. But I don't know about you, but every impulsive decision I've made as like just an Aries sun in my own energy in itself has actually led me to like really cool experiences and things.
Yeah.
And other people might look at you like, what are you, you're crazy. What are you doing? But it is that kind of just knowing, just like that is the right direction to go on, because it's somatic to me as well, like in this burning like fire impulse, like to just go and move. Yeah.
Right. As you're saying that, it's reminding me of something that I heard astrologer Rick Levine talk about.
Love him.
Talking about, yeah, me too. He was talking about the sign of Aries and about how like this idea of the now is very Aryan, right? So not being concerned with the past or the future, but just acting in the now and taking inspired action in the now, which I think is one of the most beautiful things about Mars and Aries, because it really just, it doesn't allow you to get stuck in the same way that, like, we'll get into this later, but Mars in its fall in Libra, right? It can get stuck in indecision.
Yeah.
And Mars and Aries, it's just like, no, I just got to act. Which, like you say, it can really help to keep that forward momentum in the life of somebody.
Yeah. Perfect. So speaking of Mars being stuck, Mars and Taurus.
I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll with these transitions.
You're good. So yeah, Mars and Taurus to me is like that slower moving pace, but I also really find Mars and Taurus strong.
Mm-hmm.
For me, from the evolution perspective, I think about it as being able to take direction or move in the direction of cultivating your own self-reliance.
Yeah.
And like kind of accumulating your possessions.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense, like that's really important for that Taurus archetype. Having its energy be its own resource, so it's really geared towards like self-sustainability in that sense. So I feel like that's what drives Mars and Taurus.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that Mars and Taurus, it's, there are certain things about a fixed earth sign like Taurus that are obviously very contradictory to a very quick-paced, decisive and impulsive planet like Mars. However,
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about Mars and Taurus is that it's able to continuously act over time towards the same goal, which is an energy that is 1000% necessary for achieving any long-term goals. So when I think about Mars and Taurus, I think about like this natural impulse and desire to cultivate upon something that is already in front of you.
Yeah.
And even to the point of bringing it to its perfection.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I love that. Yeah, because it's super self-sustainable. It
Mhm.
will work hard for the long haul, like long haul, like you said. And when it's needed. Like, I mean, all the Mars signs to me are needed, right? But if we're gonna build a Great Wall, for instance, right, the Great Wall of China or whatever, you're gonna want the people that can do the hard work, can get really dirty, can get kind of like really tangible in their efforts.
Mhm.
So the next time we'll talk about, it's more mental to me, but with the Taurus, it actually, I feel like it's not afraid to do the hard work either, to like do the necessary hands-on energy that it needs to grow or to cultivate or to grab whatever resources it needs.
Right.
Yeah.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking about Mars and Taurus, and it's totally reminding me of like the show like Survivor.
Oh
Like
yeah. Yeah.
like just this ability to really take whatever resources you have, however small or limited they might be, and make the most of it and be able to survive.
Yeah.
Like this whole idea of being able to yeah, survive on whatever is provided for you and make the most out of it, I think is
Yeah.
a total gift of Mars and Taurus. And like you say, just getting your hands dirty
Yeah.
and doing the hard work.
Yeah. I also think too that because these people with Mars and Taurus are usually able to do that, they're able to help like the community provide assets too, because they might be like the very sturdy person in the community or the sturdy one in the family that is like the building block for everybody around them, you know, because
Yeah.
they've been able to do that. They've been able to survive on their own.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. You know, like when I think about Taurus energy, of course, it's associated with the bull, but sometimes I think about even like an ox and like the ox being in the yoke and just carrying so much weight on it, but being so strong that it's able to do so and not succumb to the pressure. And Mars and Taurus, I think, you know, it's a perfect description for Mars and Taurus because no matter how hard the going gets, Mars and Taurus will still be there and will still be kicking ass and
Yeah.
taking name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Okay, so Mars and Gemini, you start.
Okay. Mars and Gemini is a fun placement. I think that, you know, Mars and Gemini is very different than Mars and Taurus. There's always like a corrective nature to the
Mm.
sequence of the zodiac signs. You know, Mars and Gemini is totally motivated by experience, but experience in, I would say that Sagittarius is also motivated by experience, but Gemini is a little bit different in that it's motivated by the experience of social connection and not by like profound realization. I would say like social connection and the ability to like connect the dots of how information travels throughout the world and how, yeah, I would just, help me out. How would you explain that? Like the connecting the dots.
I totally, yeah, I'm picking up on like what you're saying. And it's about like gathering information and like being super curious. And I feel like the Mars and Gemini could gather so much information and opinions through like talking to other people or doing research or, you know, doing interviews. I think actually probably like a journalist would be a good Mars and Gemini example. Like
Yeah.
somebody who's going out and like gathering the information because it is you know, Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So we'll think about what Mercury does in the chart, and it's the toddler. I always think of the toddler in the zodiac when I think of Gemini too, because they're really curious and their attention span doesn't get fixated on something.
Right.
And I'm glad that you brought in Sagittarius too, because it's like in Gemini, we're just busy gathering information, gathering thoughts, gathering ideas, not really having a direction because it's just like so sharp and quick. So I think like Mars and Gemini can be very fast, like quick in their movement as well. Like, so if they're going to put it in like physical form, you know, they might have really good agility and think on their feet and kind of just change the pace really fast. Whereas like if it's in Sagittarius, it's heading towards a direction.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, now that you're saying that, it's making me think that, you know, in Gemini, we're, like you say, just focused on collecting the information, but then opposite Gemini and Sagittarius, we're really focused on synthesizing it
Yeah.
and finding meaning in it. And as you were speaking, I was thinking also that Mars and Gemini is definitely like I would say that Gemini in general fits this archetype, but especially Mars and Gemini, the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Because yeah, this ability to just do a million different things, even if we're doing them superficially, right? Because Mars and Gemini energy in general, it's not necessarily concerned with mastery, but with variety.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think that there's a saying that's like, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but it's better than being a master of one.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Like the whole saying goes like that. And that's totally Mars and Gemini, because I frequently see these people and they're interested in a million different things and can defend themselves in a million different things, you know?
Yeah. This is going to be really important when we go back to the retrograde cycle later. But
Yeah.
a couple of your points I've just noted in my head too, because especially being the jack of all trades, when we get there, we'll talk about it. But why I feel like that's super important to harness. Like, even if people aren't born with Mars and Gemini, when they have this transit, that energy will be really important to pick up. So, okay, so we have Mars and Cancer.
Okay. Mars in Cancer is an interesting placement. So at least in the Hellenistic and traditional framework, Mars is said to be in detriment in Cancer, which means that it's the most difficult sign for Mars to be in, as it's opposite Capricorn and its exaltation. And the reason why Mars struggles in this sign, I feel personally, is because Mars is already on the defense, and Cancer is the sign about building like a wall around me and protecting myself, right? So I feel like Mars in Cancer struggles because it's almost hypersensitive to any like alien attack on it, even to a point where it might perceive something that isn't really worth defending themselves against as an imminent attack. However, I find that people with Mars and Cancer are amazing providers and nurturers, because they really are focused on creating that security and comfort, especially for those that are near and dear to them. They're really motivated, I think, by any love and care that they feel in their heart for somebody. And I think that, like their loved ones are really what motivates them to take action, for sure.
Oh yeah, I agree with you on that for sure. To me, it's like protecting the home. For some people too, because I have Mars in the 4th house, but it's an Aquarius. But for me, I have this this need to protect the nation. I know that's going to sound really silly, but I was in the military too. So yeah. So, it's like, whether you have, Mars in the 4th house to me or Mars in Cancer, you will have that protective nature about you. And for me too, it's about emotional resilience, because it's in that water sign. And so if a person with Mars in Cancer feels like they're emotionally not safe, I think that defense mechanism will come up. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just learning how to nurture yourself appropriately. And then somebody with Mars and Cancer, or Mars in the 4th house and the EA approach, will know how to work with that energy when it does get triggered, or they do feel like that defensive nature coming out through them. And it's home, it's roots, it's your emotional security. And I think that it can be like a tough energy. And I think that if you piss off a Mars in Cancer, like, you're definitely going to feel the wrath from the emotion. Like, I think people like underestimate like the quality. It just makes me think of like really strong moms, like really protective moms with Mars and Cancer, so I think like people, like, if you have Mars and Cancer, like, they're probably like, oh, I'm not that soft. I'm actually a very like strong, assertive energy. But yeah, I do think it's about regulating your emotions, and understanding that that's from my perspective, the evolutionary intention is creating that will and that drive around your emotions and knowing how to navigate that in the appropriate way.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful description of it. As you were saying, like the protective mom. It's funny you say that because my mom is actually a Mars in Cancer. And yeah, like growing up, anytime somebody would ever do anything to me or my siblings, my mom was like ready to fight tooth and nail. She was like the angry mama bear. And also,
Yeah.
especially like growing up with her and knowing somebody with a Mars and Cancer so intimately, I also noticed that like this waxing and waning effect that Cancer has can affect all things Mars for these people, right? So there can be times of like extreme motivation, and then times where there's absolutely no motivation, as well as times where you feel really empowered to assert yourself, as well as times where you're feeling like maybe you really need to, be more passive or can let people even walk all over you,
Yeah.
because of just not feeling that power to defend yourself or assert yourself. And I also think that this can affect libido too. I've noticed with friends of mine who have Mars and Cancer that yeah, like their sexual desire can also have this waxing and waning quality to it.
That's a brilliant connection. Yeah, I love that. It's brilliant. Because it's so true, because it's so connected to the moon and the water energy. Yeah. Okay, so then it's funny as we talk about these Mars placements, I feel my energy shift. I don't know if you feel it, but I'll feel like into the Cancer, and now we're on to Leo, and I'm like, oh, Mars and Leo, rawr. So yeah, to me it's, oh my gosh, it's fierce, creative, fire, self-expression.
Yes.
Yeah, like hands down, like very showy, kind of like flamboyant, kind of just like in your face type of energy. And also just going and doing things in a creative way,
Yeah.
art, dance, poetry, making clay pots. I don't know, like how would you talk about Mars and Leo?
Yeah, I think Mars and Leo is really motivated by its ability to express whatever it's proud of in itself, right? So like it doesn't necessarily have to be, I think Leo is very frequently associated with like the performing arts and arts in general, but I think that even more so it's like somebody with a Mars and Leo, it will take action based off of if it feels pride in that action. And I also think that Mars and Leo, especially, it definitely has like this exhibitionist quality to it, I think, where it wants to be recognized for the actions that it takes. I think like a nightmare for Mars and Leo would be to like put all of their energy into some creative project and then have it be advertised under the name of an organization, like they want their recognition. And they want to be able to, I think, identify and take pride in the work that they do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you on the recognition point. And I find that they're very generous in their actions too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like giving and yeah, they want the spotlight, but they also love the feeling of that appreciation, which will usually funnel through giving, because then somebody appreciates you for what you gave, right? Or your generosity and stuff. So I think that the spotlight, I don't feel like that energy gets tired of being the spotlight. Like it might because of other dynamics in the chart, but I just think that it's so driven by that, that star quality, that's where that ambition comes from, definitely.
For sure. I think that, like you say, of course, charts can be so nuanced, but I think that whenever there is even just one planet in Leo, it really shines through because at the end of the day, the sun it's so powerful and its energy is so abundant.
Oh, sorry. They bark a couple of times. Okay. Hold on, I might pause this for a minute.
Okay.
Okay, great. Now that we got rid of the chihuahuas.
One other point I wanted to make about Mars and Leo, just to piggyback off of what you were saying about it being very generous with its actions. Leo energy in general, as it being the sun or the sign ruled by the sun is the planetary body that it just keeps on giving without expecting anything in return. And Leo energy, so long as it's feeling appreciated and admired, it will just keep on giving and it likes to.
Yeah.
I think it really enjoys feeling like it's providing light and energy to the people around them and in the form of inspiration. Really, I think Mars and Leo is really motivated by the ability to inspire other people to take action, do what they love.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's definitely leader energy,
For sure.
Yeah. Aside from the Aries quality too, I definitely think Mars and Aries is leader, but they're in different ways.
Yeah.
So then we move from Mars and Leo, which is this big, bright, crazy, abundant energy, and then we go to Mars and Virgo, which is so different, right?
Yes, it's like a Rubik's cube.
Yeah, yeah, and like, so my key thing around Mars and Virgo is just constant self-improvement. And the ability to make improvements in whatever area it's acting towards or acting in, so just like little adjustments and little changes here and there, and having an eye for the detail, or an eye to not be like nitpicky, but to just see where something can just do it a little better, or make it a little better.
Yeah, I think Mars and Virgo is really motivated by achieving efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah.
And it's very quickly able to determine what are the things that are not working and get rid of them, which is, as somebody who has a lot of strong Pisces in their chart, I really like Mars and Virgo for that reason, because Mars and Virgo, it doesn't get lost in the details. It might get hung up on them, but it doesn't get lost in them. Right? Like it's able to see everything very clearly and it's able to take action in a very systematic way.
Yeah.
So like, my brother has his Mars in Virgo, and when I was beginning my practice, I really relied on him to help me with some of the initial planning because it was so hard for me as somebody who has so much Jupiter and like Pisces and Sag in their chart. It was so hard for me to take the big picture and say, how the fuck do I get there? Right? What are the small steps to getting there? Whereas my brother with the Mars and Virgo was just like, you need to do this and then this and then this and this, and like map it all out. And all of a sudden it's like I have a game plan. Mars and Virgo is great for that, I think.
Yeah. It's so intellectual in that process. I think you're exactly right. I have Pisces 6th house, right? But the sun is in the 6th house, but it's still colored by the Pisces energy. And I think sometimes with the Virgo, it can get on the shadow side if it happens, it gets what's the word? stuck,
Mm,
paralyzed because it can have so much on its plate, or it can see so many things need to be done,
yeah,
but just to untangle that is to know that like nothing is going to ever be perfect,
right.
and it is like that step by step process that Virgo is so good at doing.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, Mars and Virgo is like super. I'm glad that you have a brother that can help you with that. That's,
Yeah,
because we can have these big ideas, which is the Pisces, right? The all of everything and the all of consciousness. And it's not until we put that into a tangible form, the earth quality, you know. I also think, Mars and Virgo is not your, I feel like they're like your soft warrior, you know,
mm,
they're like the strategic planner. It reminds me of Pallas Athene as well,
mm,
like Pallas Athene in the chart, where it's like more about like strategy.
yeah.
So if like you're gonna be in war, for instance, with somebody, right? Like you're gonna want the Mars and Virgo to be like laying out the plans for you, and figuring out like what the geography of the land looks like, and putting everything in place and having like things just organized in that nature.
It's so funny that you bring that up. That's such a good point because if we think about like the mythology of Pallas Athena and Aries, for example, they were brother and sister, and they were both associated with war, but she was always beating him. Like in the Odyssey, for example, she was constantly dominating him on the battlefield, but not because of her brute strength, but just because of her ability to plan strategically.
Yeah.
And, whereas Aries energy, it's all about just like, let's just do something now, right? Whereas, like you say, Pallas Athena just kind of, it's able to move the chess pieces
Yeah.
and, checkmate its opponent.
Yeah.
And then another thing I'll mention is that from the Hellenistic perspective, Mars has its joy in the sixth house
Mm.
or the house of Virgo.
Yeah.
Um, and I personally believe that the reason it does is because in order to effectively achieve anything, you need to break it up into bite-sized pieces.
Yeah.
And there's no better sign to do that than Virgo.
Yeah. Way to go, Mars and Virgo.
Yeah.
you know oh, I love that. Okay, so Mars and Libra, do you want to go?
Mm. Yeah, Mars and Libra. I have a bunch of Mars and Libra people in my life. I know this energy very well. Mars is in its fall in Libra, so it's opposite. It's a sign of domicile, which is Aries. So it's essentially like whenever a planet is in fall, I think of it as like you're like a comparative literature major and you walk into um, a lecture on like astrophysics. Like it's like being in a territory that is so totally foreign to your skill set and nature. Right. So Libra, as a Venus ruled sign, it is all about union and unifying people and bringing people together, whereas Mars is all about separating itself and individualizing.
Yeah.
So Mars and Libra, I think, is really, really motivated by its relationship with other people in its life. And it's really motivated by peace and harmony, even to its own detriment, which is why I think Mars and Libra many times does stifle its own desires and needs in order to appease the people around it. Mars in Libra on the positive side, though, is extremely charismatic.
Yeah.
And my there's somebody very close in my life who has a Mars in Libra, and he's always talking about like he's always talking about how to charm people like into getting what he wants,
Mhm.
and not in like a gross manipulative kind of way, but just understanding that you don't just walk up to somebody and say, hey, do this thing for me. but
Yeah.
you wine and dine them, you sweet talk them,
Yeah.
you ease them into it, and then you get them on board. I
Yeah.
think it's a very Mars and Libra thing.
Oh, yeah, it can be very diplomatic.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. The politician, or something, which could be more Mercury and Libra too. But even if you're taking action and like going out in the community, right? You know what I mean? I think it wants justice.
Mm,
Like that's a drive for Mars and Libra person. I agree with everything that you said, especially around learning about itself through relationship dynamics.
mhm,
It is gonna, I think, for the Mars and Libra person, they are gonna learn about their own energy by relationships with people.
mhm,
And I always like to think too of Libra as not balanced, and it's
mhm,
through such extremes that Libra does find balance. So it's gonna have to like rock the scales throughout its life in order to figure out, you know, I do like that in engaging with people, and I don't like this, and I am gonna compromise for this, and I won't compromise for that. So I think too, like Mars and Libra people can teach us so much about energy exchange and how to get what we want with other people, um,
mhm.
how to finesse our way in a fair and just way, which are the positive traits around the Libra archetype. Um, I also find that they care a lot about beauty.
Mhm.
So this person might spend more time, beautifying themselves or taking care of their health or beautifying whatever it is that they care about. They want to put energy or work in, even if it's their work, like creating beautiful work or something like that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
also think that Mars and Libra people are extremely picky physically with their intimate partners. Definitely, they have like a very high standard for what they're attracted to.
Yeah.
And they apply that same standard to themselves, like you say.
Yeah.
Um, and just to say one more thing about like that balancing act that you were talking about that Libra does. I definitely think that something I've noticed with Mars and Libra is that it, like you said, especially when these people are younger, they're constantly flip-flopping back and forth between not asserting themselves at all and then being extremely over assertive to the point where the people in their lives are like, whoa, man, like, hold on, what's that all about? I
Yeah.
think that if you know somebody with a Mars in Libra, it can feel like sometimes they're the most passive person and then sometimes they're the most defensive person
Yeah.
And it's all about that journey, like you say, of learning to, balance the scales out and find that sweet spot in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, okay, so after we learn about relationships with Mars and Libra, we go into the Mars and Scorpio dynamic. For me, it is I love Scorpio energy, and I just love it. And I don't think it's an easy energy, but I think it's an incredibly empowering energy
Mhm.
when somebody has like gone through it and mastered it. I do think that this is a Mars placement that will have to deal with things in their life at certain points that might cause them to go into work that is deeply psychological. Like I
Yep.
feel like it kind of draws that in, like betrayal, loss, and abandonment stuff that I associate with Scorpio energy. But I do find that this is a really strong placement for knowing how to be the Phoenix rising, like
Yeah.
deeply psychologically transform yourself from like that emotional layer.
Yeah, agreed. My Mars is actually in Scorpio, so I understand this very well. And yeah, like you say, I think that there is an intense motivation to understand at the deepest level the motivation and drive behind everything, be it people, organizations, governments, the cosmos itself.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely think of, the detective, the investigator with this aspect, like really wanting to sift through all of the nitty gritty to find, like that nugget of deep intrinsic truth at the very bottom of it. And I think, like you say, Mars and Scorpio, it learns to self-assert by having, I think that it learns to self-assert by being forced into situations that that really test its strength and its will, right? Be it through these crisis events or abandonment or betrayal. And it's really only through these extreme moments that Mars and Scorpio really knows just how strong it is.
Yeah. Would you say too that the attachment style with this energy is really, to me, it's like really strong if the Mars and Scorpio trusts you. Like it's like a loyal energy.
Yeah.
It's like fixed emotion.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I was just speaking with a friend about this earlier, about how I think Mars and Scorpio especially refuses to dive in all the way before knowing that it can trust you or trust your motivations or your project, your mission, whatever. It will really step back and spend its time and energy analyzing and deducing your level of honesty and reliability.
Yeah. I love this. I love Scorpio energy. I just always get excited whenever I talk about a planet in Scorpio because it's so it's intense.
It is really intense.
And powerful. Yeah.
I also think that Mars and Scorpio, in a different way than Virgo, is very strategic. It might not be in this, step 1, step 2, step 3 kind of way. But Mars and Scorpio is really strategic in the sense that it understands, like, if I do X, this is the kind of reaction that I'm going to get because it's going to flip this switch, like, psychologically in somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. It's like it's strategic in a different kind of way.
Emotional intelligence.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming out through that Martian energy. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. It's like special forces.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I think like what are they, the Navy SEALs?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so what do you think about Sagittarius?
Mars and Sagittarius. I think that this is a fun placement. I think that Mars and Sagittarius is really motivated by, like we were talking about earlier with the Gemini, it's really motivated by experience, but I think more so it's motivated by that feeling of discovery, like, aha, like I just gained some divine wisdom through whatever I'm doing. And I think especially like in its, whatever it does in its work, it's really looking to be able to be like spiritually inspired through whatever it's doing. Like if it doesn't feel like an action or a career or a trajectory is aligned with its like philosophical values and its vision for the world, it will be very flighty.
Yeah. I think of it as searching for the truth. The capital T truth. Like the Gemini is like the little mini T's of truth, but like, Gemini is just like, what is that big picture? What's beyond the horizon? Where am I headed type of energy or type of goal. I definitely associate on like just the mundane level, like somebody who probably likes to take a lot of trips. Again, it would depend on like the other things happening in their chart, but you know, like a travel travel guide. You know, I almost want to say pilot, but I associate Aquarius more with flying.
Yeah.
You know, but definitely somebody who's searching for adventure, I think too. And looking for like that spark of excitement, or that intuitive like fire, that inspiration to go after, and to be provoked to evolve through its Martian energy. You know, like
Mhm.
if it's not inspiring, like you said, if it's not inspiring for Sagittarius, I feel like that Mars energy will get really bored and
Mhm.
honestly quite depressed,
Yeah.
because it just needs philosophy, and it needs arts, and it needs a cosmological, like, something to look into, or something to research and dive into further. You know,
Mhm.
it's fire energy, but it's intellectual fire energy, and it, you know, and it does remind me of um Chiron, in the sense of like the teacher aspect as well. So, you know, what can I really master and learn, um so that I can inspire others through that discovery, if you will. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
do
would
think it's
agree.
around like self-discovery as well, like personal self-discovery, and that could be in like little moments or like really big moments.
Yeah, as you're speaking, you're like ticking off so many different thoughts in my head. One of those being, like you say, like the traveler. I have a friend who has his Mars in Sagittarius, and he's like one of these people that is constantly on the move and exploring new locations, such that he's like the go-to person if you want to like know a cool spot to like a cool hike to do, or a cool waterfall to go to, like some hidden beach to find. Like he's your guy because he's just constantly exploring in nature and loves it. I definitely think that that can be attributed to Mars and Sagittarius, being very motivated by a connection to nature.
Yeah.
Um, and also, like you say, yeah, like this ability to teach, being very motivated to share your realizations and your knowledge. And also, to bring it back to like the Hellenistic perspective, we say that the sun has its joy in the ninth house, and that the ninth house is the house of God. And essentially, this is because it's said that like the divine knowledge and wisdom that um, can only be understood by God is essentially held in the sun.
Mm.
And that this is why Sagittarius has such a close connection to divine knowledge and wisdom, and Mars and Sagittarius being extremely motivated to go on that journey to discovering that for itself.
Yeah. Yeah, and because it's like that fire too, I feel that if somebody has this placement, like don't be afraid to follow that sudden knowing or inspiration, like to just discover something, discover a truth, or, you know, if your belief system has to change and then you have to do some searching and digging, traveling, whatever it is, go to the library, whatever, like to follow that instinctual nature, because I think that that's their Martian energy coming out of them, and guiding them in a divine direction to serve them in some way, you know.
Right. I mean, as a mutable sign, like Mars in any mutable sign, but especially I would say like Mars in Gemini and Sagittarius as the air and fire mutable signs. Those are two placements where these people, they feel happiest and most alive when I think that they're totally open to changing their course of direction at the drop of a dime. And if there are any other placements in the chart that might be restricting that, um, that Mars can feel stifled. And like you say, just trusting in that instinctual knowing
Yeah.
to just change your course.
100%.
Mhm.
100%. So the exalted Mars in
In
Capricorn.
Capricorn. Love it.
Yeah, my business partner has this.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, she's got a full loaded third house of Capricorn. So it's really interesting. But she's definitely driven. Like she is got that Mars and Capricorn drive. She's just going to get things done. I think it's so true, everything that we learn about it, where it's just so ambitious, and it really is CEO type of energy to
Oh
me.
yeah.
Like it's going to do the work, it's going to do it right. um,
Yep.
it really wants it to be, I don't want to say perfect, but it needs to look good, it needs to sound good, it needs to be professional.
Yep.
And it needs to be well articulated and informative, and she's a hard worker as well. And it's like anything that she touches, she really does. She's Pisces, but with this Mars and Capricorn, anything that she dreams, like she has the ability to actually manifest and make in a tangible form, and then make money from it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Mars and Capricorn, I noticed this. I have a good friend who she also has like a huge Capricorn stellium with a Mars and Capricorn. And she is incredible at finding ways to monetize off of anything.
Yeah.
She is constantly thinking about like, well, this is how you can turn this into a business, and then this is how you can market it, and this is how you can brand it. Like Mars and Capricorn is incredibly creative when it comes to the structure and execution of anything business.
Yeah.
And like you say, they're extremely hard workers. And Mars has the longest staying power for sure, I think. And Mars and Capricorn, Mars and Capricorn, I think, does so well because it restrains Mars from burning out, because it's not wasting its time and doing anything that has to be redone. Like it's going to do it right the first time. And so it saves itself a lot of time and energy in
Yeah.
doing so. And also, just Mars and Capricorn really knowing how to choose its battles. Mars and Capricorn is the general for
Yeah.
sure. Mars and Aries, the warrior, but Mars and Capricorn, the general. It knows when to fight and it knows when to lay down its sword.
Yeah.
And it doesn't waste its time getting into, unnecessary altercations or upsetting itself unnecessarily. It's just laser focused on its goal. And I think of like that scene in the Matrix where they're like shooting at Neo and he's just like, wow. Like
The ending scene, like the most badass scene. Yeah.
Like Mars and Capricorn can have a million distractions coming at it, but it doesn't get pushed off course.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that, because I always associate Capricorn with an emotional energy. And I think like people forget that. And I'm like, it's opposite Cancer. It's on this emotional spectrum, but it's the emotional maturity.
Yes.
And so that's why it is the general and able to make strategic plans with its action, because it has gained wisdom over time of how to regulate how it uses its emotions, and then also draw its own boundaries around what it is and is not going to partake in or allow. So yeah, that's why like Mars is totally exalted in this sign, because it doesn't, not that any sign is right or wrong, but it just doesn't like take off like a rocket like Aries would. It's kind of like it has gone through all the other signs in the zodiac, if you will, like mentally planning everything, and then it's like, okay, do we take action, do we not, how are we going to go about this?
Right.
Is this going to serve my empire, or is this going to take it down?
That's a great keyword for Capricorn. And it's the point I was going to bring up, is that this idea of an empire, like Mars in Capricorn is 1000% motivated by their desire to leave something behind that people in the future will then look at and say, oh, this is by so and so, and they will be recognized for that, like even after their death. Like Mars and Capricorn really wants to feel like, like they have an empire, and they're ruling over it.
Yep. Yep. I love it. So Aquarius.
Yeah, Aquarius. Why don't you start this one, Miss Aquarius Mars?
Proud of my Mars. Yeah, like, so just from like my own perspective, now that I know astrology and understanding my tools, I realize how I was acting out my Mars in my younger childhood and why it triggered so many people. And so I think like Mars in Aquarius is all about liberation and freedom and
Mhm.
breaking the patterns and
Mhm.
doing things in a different way. So, it can come across as like rebellious energy. But usually I like to think of it as like we just see something that can work, but not everybody has caught up to that yet. And
Yeah.
not everyone sees that plan yet and sees how it will be able to strategically plan out. Because, Aquarius is an intellectual sign and it does have to do with the higher mind and higher consciousness. So for me, it's future oriented, which might not always do best in like the planning of the now, but I
Mhm.
do think it has the strategic ability to get us out of like stuck patterns that just are outdated or outworn and don't work anymore, and like look ahead and be able to change the path or change the direction in a way that will lead you to where you need to go.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a really awesome description of it. Like the traditional ruler of Aquarius is, of course, Saturn. And so I think Aquarius is still very focused on, the structure of things, except it's focused on not establishing structure, but restructuring what it's been born into or what it's experiencing, like you say, in a way that they feel will be more beneficial to, I think, basic human rights,
Yeah. Yeah.
like what's going to give people, um, like, how do we do things so that everybody feels, free and respected and accepted?
Yeah.
And I also think, like you said, like you mentioned that your Mars would trigger people. And I think that, Aquarius itself, Aquarius energy, it's triggering,
Yeah.
like Aquarius, like for example, Aquarius Mercury are definitely those people that say the thing that nobody else is saying, for sake of just, not tipping,
Yeah.
like not rocking the boat. But Aquarius Mercury will just be like, I don't like your haircut.
Yeah.
And I think Aquarius Mars, it's kind of like, I don't like how this is restricting me, so I'm just gonna do it my way.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So perfect. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's like just be you, be like the individual with your actions. And I think for Mars and Aquarius people too, if like you're wanting to do something new and it's considered weird just to other people, like you're probably on the right path. Like if it's weird to other people but it's totally normal for you, I think you're living out your Aquarius archetype in a healthy way, because it is just different. Yeah. And then you're just being more of an individual, which is about the Aquarius reality as well.
For sure. I think that Aquarius, wherever it is in the chart, especially if you have any planets, like any personal planets, or you're rising in Aquarius, these are going to be places where you feel like an outlier,
Yeah.
or like you feel like an outcast. So like you say, Mars and Aquarius, if you feel like you're being like ostracized or judged or, criticized for the action that you're taking or the path that you're taking in life, it's because you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Because even though that can feel quite isolating, that's really, I think, from like an evolutionary perspective, that's like what Aquarius is supposed to be living out.
Yeah. It's actually just reminding me of the movie Tropic Thunder.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh God. Okay.
But I'm gonna go watch it now.
You have to watch this movie. There's a part when Ben Stiller goes off on his own from the rest of the crew.
Mhm.
He's following the map and he goes off on his own and he has this really crazy wild experience. But for those watching, if they know Tropic Thunder, they'll know. You have to watch this movie. It's so funny. So funny. Okay, so Mars and Pisces.
Mars and Pisces are spiritual warrior.
Yes.
Yeah, Mars and Pisces is definitely motivated, I think, by Pisces is such a difficult energy to put into words sometimes because it's just so not about words and more about feeling, right? But if I can try and describe it, it's like Mars and Pisces wants to save.
Yeah.
Honestly, Mars and Pisces is motivated by this desire to uplift those who are being looked down upon or not receiving the kind of attention or support that they should. Mars and Pisces is definitely the sign that will fight for the underdog tooth and nail.
Yeah.
It will fight for people's right to practice faith in whichever way they see fit.
Yeah.
And Mars and Pisces, I think, is really motivated on a personal level to discover that kind of meeting point between the physical world and the spirit realm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And learning how to walk a path between those two parts of human existence.
Yeah. No, that's so spot on, and it's so beautiful. I would add just to that, because everything is just on point with that, is like, I feel like these people can get lost in like daydreaming
Yep.
type of realms because they're always living in that mystical space.
Yep.
And that's okay. That, it might be really hard to like put things in its form because you can just be navigating through dreams and daydreaming and music and get lost in that. But that's part of like creating or coming up, imagining something that's more beautiful for everybody to experience.
Yeah.
So like taking those imaginative realms that I think will come through, and working with others, or bleeding into others' ability to create as well. So like going into like a Virgo energy and putting that beautiful imagination into something, into a piece of work or whatever. I also think like Mars and Pisces people are incredible lovers.
Yeah.
And like if you're around somebody with Mars and Pisces and they love you, which they most likely will, because any type of Pisces energy is so like forgiving and loving and all encompassing. Like I feel like they're very touchy, but not in like a creepy way. Just like, hi, how are you? And like just like will put their hand on you and you'll feel that energy. It's not, you can't grab it. It's like it's active energy and it's impulsive, but it's in this like mystical type of dynamic that you're breathing it in, but you can't feel it.
It's so interesting that you say that about being touchy because I have my Mars in the 12th house, and I also have a Pisces Mercury, and I really notice that about myself. I'm very touchy, but like you say, it's really just about I don't feel energetic separation between me and other people. Like it's really this deep feeling, like embodied feeling that we are all connected and we are all living, very different experiences, but the same truth,
Yep.
And, I think Mars in Pisces or Mars in the 12th house, these people need to do a lot of things in solitude
Yeah.
and a lot of things in silence. I think that these are people that can get very overwhelmed very quickly,
Yeah.
because they, like you say, they struggle to effectively understand how to like organize their time and energy
Yeah.
such that their action and I guess their energy is kind of, they'll be like trying to do one thing and then their energy is like bleeding out into a million distractions.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for these people, like I noticed myself as a Mars in the 12th house person,
Yeah.
if I am not in a room in silence, I'm not getting work done. And
Yeah.
I mean like no music.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like the minute I hear like lyrics, I'm
Yeah.
totally distracted. Like, I mean, no music,
Yeah.
like blind shut, nobody's here,
Yeah.
because yeah, like the energy can just bleed out.
Yeah.
It struggles to hone it in for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's really important that people know that with that placement, that tee out, that time out space is what you need for the balance. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And to just recharge yourself,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Mars in Pisces, as well as like Mars in the 12th, Mars in the 8th, these are people that their energy can be depleted very quickly, more quickly than the average person. And so it's okay. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself to constantly be producing, because it's in your makeup that you need that time off to just decompress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. My progressed Mars is in Pisces,
Right now. Yeah.
so I need naps.
Yeah.
Like literally, yeah, need naps. Awesome. So we completed all the 12 signs. So that was good.
That was fun.
That was fun. So I'm going to pull up the chart for the United States because you and I talked on the side that we see this big Mars retrograde cycle coming up. I'm sure for you, transits are extremely important that we pay attention to, because some people's charts will get affected in, different ways than others. It always depends on like your placements, but overall the transit is an energy that we're all experiencing.
Right.
Since the United States right now, which we're both living in, is going through their Pluto return. And this retrograde is going to be in the 7th house. Well, what system do you use?
I use the whole sign house
The
system.
whole sign.
Yeah. So I look at the US chart as a Sag rising with the Gemini 7th house. Yeah.
I'm gonna share the screen and I can switch it to whole sign because it will probably be.
If you draw the chart in Placidus, does it still give a Gemini?
Yeah.
Descendant? Yeah.
I actually use Porphyry. It's not that different than Placidus, but I'm trying to figure out this. I'm really bad with my Zoom. Like, it takes me forever in my videos. It's all right. Let me see. How do I do this? So this is for everybody watching too, Luna astrology software. So if you wanted to get your own astrology software, I have a 10% discount code. Use whole sign, not equal, whole sign. Save. Hitler's right at the top. He was like one of the first charts I started looking at when I started learning astrology, and I'm like, wow, people are gonna think I'm crazy. Like,
no, honestly, for anybody watching out there, if you're just beginning to learn astrology, I think it's actually really good to look at the charts of like really extreme people, because the way that their placements play out, it makes it really easy to see the energies.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Yeah, because they're just so obnoxious with it. Like they're so obnoxious.
yeah.
So, um, okay, so I know that you said you had a bunch of notes too on this Mars retrograde cycle. I'll just let people know. Right now, Mars is in Taurus, and we're actually having this super amazing, very rare conjunction, Mars Uranus North Node, on the 31st and the 1st of August. And I made a video on my YouTube channel that you guys can check out at some point. But
Everybody should watch because it's amazing and very inspiring.
thank you. Well, I was sitting and I was just thinking about this, and I'm like, I gotta make a video on this. This is crazy. So Mars is going into Gemini at the end of August. So a week. I have August 20th. We
Yep.
have the beginning. Okay, so you do too. We have the beginning of Mars in Gemini. The United States chart is on the inner wheel. It's a Sag rising, Cancer sun, Aquarius moon, which has been getting hit with Saturn for a long time. But when this cycle, when Mars goes into Gemini, it's going to be crossing over into United States 7th house. And, Mars does bring that assertion, right? That fierce energy, that warrior type. And now that everyone's heard us talk about Mars and all the signs, you can think about how everybody's Mars signs will start to interact with one another, because these are the dynamics of the 7th house, is our relationships with one another. And when we think about the 7th house in a chart of a country, to me, this signifies kicking off this self-defense mechanisms, if you will, or this cutting or protective energy, if you will, within each other in a country.
Yeah.
And having 8 months of this energy to me is like very, very strong.
Right. Especially because in a country's chart, like you say, the 7th house is very indicative of allies and open enemies. Anybody who is determined as a notable other in the experience of that country. So with Mars going into the United States 7th house, I definitely see, at least as Mars is moving forward, like maybe the United States taking decisive action against enemies, or to, kind of band forces with allies to take action in some certain direction. And then essentially when Mars goes retrograde, maybe the establishment being like, hold up. We need to rethink this. we need to rethink what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go into that retrograde cycle. So when Mars moves into Gemini, though, on the 20th, I noticed like, okay, we have the moon in Gemini that day too. Right. So we have the moon, the moon's kicking off in this sign where, our the way we're emotionally seeing ourselves as a country right now is probably getting all this information from all these certain perspectives, whether that's like the media or each other. I think that this would signify a lot of the stimulation of people's like minds and their curiosity being like overstimulated. And then that also feeding into this Mars energy, which will be, okay, digging up more information, finding out more information, right? Investigating, being curious, but it feels very chaotic.
Yeah, especially with Mercury transiting Mercury, which for those of you who don't know, Gemini is a Mercury ruled sign. So transiting Mercury is going to be conjunct Neptune in the 10th house, and it's going to be loosely squaring the moon. Well, later on that day, the moon will go into a direct square with that Mercury Neptune conjunction. So essentially just reiterating everything you're saying about yeah, this kind of loose form, boundaryless understanding of all things Mercury, which is media and information and communication.
And brilliant, because on that same time, it's opposing the transiting Mercury in Pisces.
Oh, geez, I didn't.
Yeah, no, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, because there's so much to look at, right? But that's why I'm so glad that you're on here too, because we have the double perspective, and it's opposing that Neptune and Pisces. So again, it's like the fog, like the illusion around the media, and how I feel like we're very much in a time and space where there's a split, where, what is the truth and what isn't the truth, and then how are you perceiving that, and what does that even mean to you, like trying to dig and find through that. And because Neptune is retrograde, it's kind of like, the way I think about retrograde planets is we need to do it our own way. No matter what planet it is that's retrograde, we need to come into our own process of understanding that.
Yeah, that's such a good way of describing it. I would have never said that, but it's so perfect because essentially, like with a retrograde planet, it's moving inward and it's quieting external stimulus. But what's the effect of that? The consequence is exactly what you're saying, finding your internal truth.
Yeah. Yep. And it's also God, I'm so sorry. I'm clearly good with my mouth today. It's accelerated in a sense too, because like your perfect words too, like quieting out the external circumstances, going within, and then having this like rush and this chaotic emotion that is very quick with Gemini energy to me. Like
Yeah.
Mars stepping into that at 0 degrees is like, we're leaving the Taurus placement, we're leaving like the slower movement. Yes, we've been able to self-sustain it for a while, but now it's like you can get burnt out really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 8 months of this.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's 8 months of like self-sustaining, energy preserving Taurus, or carefully planned Virgo, or the earth energies, basically like the Capricorn in general, right? It's like a very like toddler type of stimulation, where I almost feel like we could be seeing a lot of people moving in different directions, whether that's again physically or mentally. And I feel like that's not really sustainable for 8 months, which is why I wanted us to prepare people as well, so that they don't get burnt out.
Yeah, I think with respect to the United States, with Mars in the 7th house in Gemini, I definitely can see this playing out as like the establishment like fractaling or breaking off its energy into too many different places, such to the detriment of the 10th and 4th house axis, which is like the stability of the country, right? Like the 4th house being the homeland, and then the 10th house being like our image worldwide. And Mars having that splitting nature to it, splitting our energy into too many other people and other countries and other problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's brilliant. And then as we go forward, I'll actually just do it by days for now. No, I'll do it by a week. Because as we go forward, Mars is gonna end up trining our node, our south node, in Aquarius. And so because we're in the middle of the United States Pluto return as well, it's almost making me think that we are going to be bringing up, it's not going to be the same issues that we had at the beginning of the birth of the country, like when it was established with the South Node in Aquarius at 6 degrees, but it might be similar themes,
Yeah.
whereas like what were the people fighting for, freedom and liberation and their rights in the third house, like in your neighborhood, in your daily life, and with with your
Freedom of
state that you're
speech.
living. Yeah, and there you go, freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So I thought that that was interesting. And then if you want me to stop at any point and you want to point something out, just let me know. Then we have the conjunction to Uranus
Mhm.
around September 4th.
Mm.
Maybe it's an unexpected actually, isn't that around the midterm elections?
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean, again, like it could be like any unexpected type of news that we get around these elections. I know I don't like to get super political, but I always like to bring it up because I follow it. You know, what's going on with the votes from, the 2020 election. Do we find out some new information around that? Do we find out some new information about the vaccines that's been happening? Or does this have to do with our money and our resources? Like how do you feel like this would be showing up?
This is such a random thought, but honestly, like it has me thinking about this. And yeah, not to get too political, but the whole case against Donald Trump right now
Yeah.
about sedition, it's like essentially, the seventh house in the chart of a country, it represents allies and open enemies. And especially this being in Gemini and him being a Gemini sun, and this being square the sun in the 10th house.
Mhm.
And, Neptune there, and then the Pluto return. I'm wondering if like there might be some unexpected action or information, or like kind of like cutting or biting information that comes out in regards to that kind of makes the country feel like fuck, like that actually happened.
Yeah, and I'm actually tracking definitely with that. And then we go to, the sun will be in Virgo, and then the dispositor, Mercury in Libra, which will have to do with like the justice system coloring our 11th house of like the community, right? The bigger community or whatever in the country. So are we finding out another side of something which could come out through information in extremes,
Mm-hmm.
because of that?
It's also interesting to note that that date, his ascendant will be directly conjunct Venus, conjunct Lilith. He's a 29-degree Leo rising in the ninth house. And when I think of the ninth house, I think of, yeah,
Yeah, true.
like truth. Yeah. So I'm looking at this now and I'm like, maybe.
So, yeah, so, if things like this happen, right, and it's like, again, then it stimulates, and it always comes back to the individuals in the country. A lot of people are now going to have more information that they could be stimulated. I mean, we're just hypothesizing right now. And like, that's what we kind of do with astrology, is to try to forecast and to have fun with it as well, but also look at this from like a very real approach,
Mhm.
so it's like, we've got the whole reason why we came together was to talk about how people can use their Mars energy in a healthy perspective. So you mentioned on the 30th it stations retrograde.
Yep. Do we want to maybe talk quickly about like just the general experience of a Mars retrograde?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
had some thoughts on that. Whenever a planet goes retrograde, like you were saying earlier, Makayla, it's really about, yeah, like finding your own truth and your own path, but through that absence of external opinion and influence. And especially with Mars being the planet of action, I really think of Mars retrograde is thinking before you act, right? The planning and the deep and quiet consideration of the domino effect that your actions have before you ever do anything. And I also think of, so a few months ago, I was feeling really frustrated and I was talking to my older sister about it. And she was telling me, Sarah, progress is not linear. And Mars really wants progress to be linear. It's that arrow, that upward turn arrow.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that human life is cyclical, just like all, as above, so below. We have the planetary cycles and human life is cyclical. So growth is really not linear. It's actually like a spiral staircase. And sometimes you're like one level above, but you're also exactly where you were one level below, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And like from your perspective, it might feel like you're regressing, but really you're revisiting topics, because if you weren't to revisit them, you would never have the perspective to understand that growth has been made, or to go back and redo like those tests, right?
Yeah.
To see that this time I actually got it right. And so when I think about a Mars retrograde, I definitely, I think about that. Like it's about revisiting past themes until you truly understand A, what are your true desires in life, and B, how do you most effectively go about attaining them?
That's amazing advice to give people how to work with that energy, because I think that there will be times when there's a lot of frustration coming up, and and people just feel like they want to drive through, but using retrograde periods for that reflection, right? And to, like you said, to retrace your steps and to go back over and get a different perspective, if you will, too. Like that actually accelerates you so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find that when we do things a little bit slower, they actually get done faster.
Yeah.
Because you're not tripping up over these mistakes or having to go back and pick something that you left behind, like because you just rushed through the process.
Yep.
And that was a big lesson for me too, actually. And why I came up with the Scenic Route Astrology name is because, as like a very Aryan person, wanting to like just charge and go through things, and like realizing at one point in my life that like I have to take the scenic route, and there will be times when there's a retrograde, like you have to go on a different path, right? You have to adjust. And then that actually gives you so much more perspective, because you're taking a different route, And so, it goes back to my flying too, is like we would have a flight path, we'd be flying somewhere, but then all of a sudden unexpected, cloud comes in and I wasn't IFR rated, or an unexpected storm would come in and you have to like detour the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So under this retrograde period, I guess I would add to that coming up is like, if you're faced with challenges like in your personal life, um revert and like look at everything going around you right now, and really, like you said perfectly, like think before you act, and what are the consequences, and what are you really going for, like what battle really is worth fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And because like the transit for everybody will be in Gemini, to me it's saying ask more questions
Yep.
and like gather more information
Yep.
before you decide to take charge.
Exactly. And also, I would say, you know, Gemini is all about um like Gemini doesn't need to do an extremely significant and deep amount of research in order to understand what the truth is. Gemini, I really think of Gemini as kind of being able to like look superficially at 1,000 different things. It's like skim reading, right?
Mm.
It's like skim reading a page. Like you're able to pick out those key words from, 400 words on a page and know what it's talking about. And so, you know, when I think of a Mars retrograde in Gemini, I'm actually thinking that, it would be in everybody's best interest to refrain from doing that, because the retrograde is asking you to really slow that energy down, like you say, and make sure you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's before you take action.
Mm. Yeah. And then once it stations retrograde too, we have like the sun in Scorpio with Mercury and Venus. Like it's actually that stellium right there conjuncting the south node. So I think it even further adds to what you just said about making sure that you're dotting your T's, crossing your I's, like making sure that you're doing the investigation quality.
Yep.
Signified by all this Scorpio stellium happening right here. And then also like with the moon in Capricorn going to conjunct Pluto later in that day, knowing your boundary, like knowing your emotional resilience right here. Before you, and actually being able to know how you're going into this retrograde, like knowing your boundaries and what you are and aren't okay with. And this is like slowing down energy too, because like Mars is retrograde, all these outer planets are retrograde. The moon is in an earth, like a stable earth sign. The sun and Venus and Mercury are in this fixed water energy. So like nothing around this chart to me screams take action.
Right. Yep. Me neither. And especially just to bring it back to that moon in Capricorn conjoining Pluto, really making sure that you're doing your due diligence to do your research, collect your information. And like we were talking about earlier with like Mars and Scorpio, like stepping back and really sussing people out and sussing the situations out in your life such that you don't fall victim to like the emotional control or pressure from the established systems in your life.
Yeah.
Right, with that moon conjoining Pluto in Capricorn.
Yep. It looks like the eclipse is will be a couple of days before that.
Yep. Yep. We're moving back into eclipse season in October. So
it's fun. Do you want me to fast forward to when it stations direct, or do you have anything you want to point out?
Maybe I will. I had a few dates written down actually for like past Mars retrogrades in Gemini that might be interesting to mention.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting looking at all of the dates because they all happen in October.
Okay.
Yeah, they all happen in October. The last three happened October 20th, 1990, October 10th, 1958, and then October 28th, 1943. And a lot of things that I saw in my research that were coming up in the news at that time, like just looking at like the headliners for those dates, like a few days before and after the exact station. The reuniting of neighboring countries, for whatever reason, was a big theme, or reuniting of allies, or reworking or rewriting agreements between countries. Like any kind of agreements or acts, yeah, was something, it was like rewriting them or throwing them out altogether. Also, this was interesting. At that, during Mars retrograde in Gemini, there were so many cases of prisoners being released, like political prisoners being released.
Okay.
Information fabrications related to information and media being revealed at this time. Secret operations revealed. And yeah, like rewriting laws and treaties.
So it's all very mercurial themes for the most part, because it will either have to do with like contracts or information of some sort, like very mercurial Gemini to me themes in general. And like the actual action of that being taken place. So that's very interesting that that was coming up. I pulled up the October 20th, 1990. And when you were talking about our neighboring countries as forming alliances, right, with them. Yeah, on the Libra energy. And then you know, Pluto, another Pluto moon conjunction in a different sign.
Yep. Interesting.
But also very interesting to, yeah, that played out. But what was the one before 1990? I just want to see if that shows up again.
October 10th, 1958.
1958.
Oh
my God. That.
As you pull that up, I'm looking at my notes here, and I have an interesting quote by Dane Rudhyar about retrograde planets that I'd like to share with you, because I'm sure you're a Rudhyar fan.
Yeah, of course.
He essentially talks about retrograde planets meaning that their libido is turning inward. In other words, the planetary energy is turning inward to the unconscious.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that like all of these things about like information fabrications, prisoners being released, secret operations being revealed. It's like all of these things that are kept on the subconscious level, or like hidden from the surface, are being revealed at that time.
Get released. Yeah, that's really interesting actually. In 1958, the moon was conjunct Pluto earlier in that day.
Oh, that's so, it's really interesting when you start looking at these cycles, because it's like they don't just repeat like singularly. It's not just a singular point that's repeating. It's like you see multiple things.
Yeah,
consistently repeating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, you know, this instinctual nature around Mars, and then, you know, it just going retrograde, and these things happening. Like it's almost like the energy can't be contained at that time. You know, and for some reason these choices are being made to release prisoners, or to, you know, release ties with other countries, or form ties with others. It's almost like whatever's been pent up during the direct cycle, now that gets its chance, just because it's the reverse of it, of the energy.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So it's almost just like the opposite is what you expect to happen, like actually happens.
Right. It's like those ink drawings where you can either see like a butterfly, or like two cups, or like two faces. like things like that. It's like what was always there, but you just weren't perceiving it,
Yeah.
is now what you're seeing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's especially like long retrograde cycle. I think the last one we had was like a couple years ago. It was Mars retrograde in Aries.
Yeah.
Um, was this 2020, I feel?
Yeah.
Because
2020, we had a Mars retrograde.
okay, and then I think it went throughout the fall because it was on the 6th of January when they had the insurrection on the Capitol when Mars moved into Taurus.
Yeah.
And it's like it left that whole retrograde cycle, and you would think that Mars and Aries would have been the energy that would have like sparked something off so crazy, but it's almost like that retrograde cycle again, it did the opposite effect. It like pulled back everything that you thought would happen or was about to explode. It moved forward and then it switched signs, which is actually something I wanted to, when I was reading over my notes before we came on, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I was almost worried, I don't want to say worried, like I'm not doom and gloom or anything, but I was very intrigued by this whole retrograde cycle in Gemini. But then when I started thinking about how Mars acts in Cancer, and after we have 7-8 months of it in Gemini and people getting really like stimulated through information gathering and the curiosity and just whatever may come up for us, once it ingresses into Cancer at the end of March 2023, which we'll go into, I feel like that defensive nature around protecting the home, the nation, the land, then that really sparks up.
Yeah, especially with it transiting the United States 8th house.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I think just to bring it back to what you were talking about January of this year, it's really interesting that you say that like all of that planning of the insurrection was like going on under the scenes during the retrograde, and then the minute it went direct and moved into Taurus, it got brought out. So it's like exactly what you were saying, just the reverse effect.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Things that were once, no matter whether the planet's direct or retrograde, when it switches, whatever was hidden before comes out, and whatever was on the surface moves to the background.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yep, that's a valid point. Yeah, so we'll go through December with it all retrograde. So it stations at 25 degrees Gemini, and then it will go all the way back. And I had until January 12th.
You do work with Sabian symbols, don't
I
you?
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the Sabian symbol for 25 Gemini?
No, do you have it?
No, I don't, but
I'll pull it up.
yeah, let's do that because I like the Sabian symbols.
Okay. I do too. I think they give such awesome character to our readings.
Yeah, for anyone who's like poetically inclined, the Sabian symbols are a lot of fun.
There's a website that I really like. Is it this one? No. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know which one you're talking about. I think it's like you can choose the sign and then choose the degree.
Yes.
Yeah, hold on. Let me.
It's not this one. There's a gardener trimming large palm trees. Oh, here.
Interesting.
Oh. I want to see the photo.
Okay, so
Do you have it? Do you have the right? I can give you access, I think.
I'm trying to find that website that I always use, and I don't know if they,
Like went away.
yeah, I wonder if they got rid of it because I can't find it
I
anywhere.
know there's like a specific one, everybody. So sorry. We'll get this. It's all right. Well, it's all right. Here. It's kind of like this one. Is
Hold
that
on.
one?
Yeah, well, that's, I think it's not the one that I'm talking about, but that's the best one because at least it's giving a little bit of, description to work on. But
Look at this. Containment of wildness.
Mars in Gemini is definitely a bit wild, and a retrograde would attempt to contain it. So,
All right. Wholesome limits must be applied to our urge to expand the scope of our knowledge and experience. Tidying up the expression of personality. So allowing free rein to the mind's powerful urge to expand can simply generate wild imaginings and cluttered thought processes. Education, in its true, wholesome sense of leading out, can helpfully shape the patterns of a developing mind by offering structure and disabusing us of silly nonsense.
that seems very on par.
Yeah. Yeah. And
extremely on par.
it totally does. And like, look, and then we have like the man climbing up the tree, and he's got like this, like he's using something. He's like strategically doing it. He's not just like climbing up, like using his arms and legs like a monkey. It's almost like yeah, he used his mind to like create something to like get up the tree.
And if you think about a palm tree, it's like it has all of these different, it has like all of these different rays. It's kind of like a sun, and it's like breaking off into so many different directions. And this idea of like trimming the palm tree, it's like trimming away the unnecessary mental bullshit, or the just unnecessary bullshit in general, of like what we're hearing in the media and what, your neighbors telling you, what your friends are telling you about, how you need to act, what course of action you need to take, where you need to go in life, how you need to do things. And yeah, just clearing away all the bullshit to leave behind, a fresh start.
Yeah. And to add to, the wholesome limits must be applied. The moon is in Capricorn that day.
Yeah.
So again, knowing your boundaries, so you don't act on an urge of wildness. The whole chart is actually so beautifully related to that Sabian symbol. That was a great idea.
It's funny the way those things work. You think they wouldn't, and then they have a way of saying so much.
Yeah. So if anybody is interested, this is a good website to go to look at Sabian symbols, and they always give these awesome videos too that I always watch. A very smart man usually comes on and talks about the Sabian symbol in depth. And I love it. It's enjoyable.
Very smart man. It's gotta be a smart man. That's funny.
So I have it was January 12th. I had Mars station direct. Did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's pull up January 12th to see that chart.
Oh, here it is.
Well, interestingly enough, it's stationing direct right on Uranus again.
Yep.
Which honestly, I think might not be necessarily all that bad, especially considering, like, when I think Mars Uranus, it's definitely like, it's like turning your key ignition. It's like that spark plug that just goes off and makes the motor run.
Yeah.
And so, with a Mars Uranus conjunction, it's definitely, it can feel a little unnerving, but it definitely gives, it's like, what it's like? It's like for anybody out there who's played Mario Kart and you're on Rainbow Road. it's, it's such it seems ridiculous, but it's such a good description of what Mars Uranus does, because it just like shoots you into that next chapter, that next step with so much forward impulse.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And that's actually perfect. It's been a minute since I played that game. So we've got Moon and Virgo over here, opposite Neptune, which is now direct. Jupiter's back in Aries direct. So we got a lot of forward motion going at that time. Saturn's also direct. And so Pluto.
Yeah.
But Mercury's retrograde. So it's almost like there probably is like a sudden movement forward of like what's going on in your life. Like you're definitely feeling that, and maybe that erratic push forward. But every time Mercury is retrograde, it's always, I feel like we always need a second look at it. And
there's definitely going to be some, you're going to be stumbling over.
Yeah, like a revision will be needed. I can't tell you, I probably should start a log because I wasn't really sure when I first was learning astrology, but it is really true for me, at least. Every time Mercury's in retrograde, I usually are seeing so many things that do happen. They have to be done twice usually, and it does take on the archetype of the sign that it's in. I don't want to say it's like for everything it's always computers or it's always documents or whatever, but
and Capricorn revising legislature, especially transiting the US's second house, revising legislature around our values, and around our, revising legislature around survival. And so I wonder if at this time there's going to be like some major forward movement as far as like the housing crisis and the supply chain, and even like I saw this morning that, for example, ExxonMobil is going to be buying back 500 million stocks. Like, this is why gas can become so expensive, because like they have so much control over how they manage this commodity, and really needing to like relook the laws and legislature around commodities and resources and like utilities.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Saturn will still be dancing all over the United States moon, so like creating that restriction, like, even though it's in Aquarius and it wants freedom for everybody and for the people, for their homes and what they need for nurturing, for survival, and their inner emotional security, I think is really up for a challenge right now, as Saturn's dancing over that area of the United States chart too. But again, it's only to strengthen, to me, the moon of the chart, and also the sun, because the sun is in Cancer. So just like repeating theme here of like, how are we taking care of our needs and each other? And you brought up that good point of it being about survival because of the transit through the second house at that time. So it's nothing to fear. I think it's like knowing that there's like hard work ahead, and like just to have that resilience. And again, to know where your Mars is in your chart and how you can use that to get through this time, because to me that's a major part of your strategy on how to survive.
Definitely. One thing I feel compelled to mention to people watching, as you say, like, it's nothing to fear. I think that it's really important to remember that, like, Makayla and I and all other astrologers, like we have a duty to like speak the truth of what we see. There's no point in sugarcoating it because it just wouldn't be truthful. And down the line, you'll figure that out anyways. But something that I think many people who are either students of astrology or professional astrologers experience is we experience that initial like shock and stress beforehand, because it's just a natural human response
Yeah.
to anything that looks a little bit unsettling. But that emotion subsides when you use astrology, the emotion subsides before that energy actually comes to fruition, and you're able to better plan and act again, like in that Mars and Capricorn way with a cool head, because you've been able to use that insight to kind of process your emotions way before you're actually faced with, the time to take action. So
I could not have ever said that better. That was perfect. That was so perfect. That's exactly what it's about.
yeah.
Exactly. And that's so like why I'm so glad I wanted to do this with you too, is because somebody who understands like this Martian, like this taking action, but like we're doing this, we're using our astrology in a way to protect people and to give them information and to give confidence as well that, like they can do something, you know, and it's about their own self-expression too, and utilizing the gifts that your own chart has given you. Your own chart has given you the survival instincts and needs that you need being born and living in time and space right now.
Agreed.
And like we're all together too, so the humanitarian part of me is coming out, but it's like we're all like we're all together in this, and so we can all like really work together and like have our part and play our part. So it's like if you're the Mars and Pisces person, like you're going to be a spiritual leader for everybody, and you're going to give that faith and that hope and that love that's needed. And if you're in the Mars and Capricorn, you're going to know the strategy to help the economy or to help people figure out how to best use their skills and create a business out of it if they need. Dynamics are really important. Yeah, so it stations direct on the 12th, and then I had it wrapping up around the 16th at leaving, I think it was the shadow.
Yeah.
And then going into Cancer on the 25th of March. So let me see. March. Yeah, I can. January, February. This is a very long cycle. So yeah, so okay, on the 16th, so people can see it's at 25, so considered clear, right, out of its retrograde, and then on the 25th, a week later or so, we go into Cancer, which will take on a whole other energy, and hopefully we can get together then do a part 2.
That would be so fun to just do like a Mars series of transiting Mars.
Oh yeah.
I would love to do that. Yeah, I'm liking this. There's looking like, there's a lot more forward movement. Thank God. Saturn's finally going to be in Pisces off of the moon. I mean, it's still going to be like within a degree conjunction, but still, the fact that it's out of sign, it's kind of softening that a bit.
Look at Pluto.
Oh, yeah. Pluto's, making its initial ingress into, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they were both going to be at 0 degrees on the same day.
Yeah.
And conjunct one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we should do a video on that.
Yeah. Give us a like if you want part 2. Is there anything you else want to say about the Mars retrograde cycle?
I think just embrace patience, everybody. I think that especially Makayla can probably relate to me as a fellow Aries when I say this, patience can be hard.
Yeah.
Patience
Yeah.
is a virtue for sure, but just remember that, as above, so below. There's a reason why these retrograde cycles exist. If they weren't necessary here below, they wouldn't exist up above, right? So
Yeah.
just don't, I think that they're difficult, but the one thing that we do have in our control is to not resist them,
Yeah.
because resistance only makes it feel more painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, just empower yourself with knowledge at this time, Mars and Gemini. Empower yourself with knowledge.
I love this. Well, thank you so freaking much.
Thank you. I'm so happy we did this.
Me too. This is going to be awesome. This will be up on YouTube and I'll send it to you also. Before we go, where can people find you and book readings with you and all of that?
Yeah, so I have my website at solarcrossastrology.com, which is where I have like articles and my consultations, any contact information. Also, I'll make a quick mention that for anybody who's interested, I just redid like a quick little guide to the lunar phases. It used to be like a really quick little thing, but I've turned it into a 30-page guide that's totally free on my website for anybody who wants to download it. It's, all about the lunar phases and the natal chart and how to interpret them natally, as well as in transit, and how to kind of use the lunar phases to plan your life with like chart examples and everything. So that'll be on my website. And then social media is just Instagram at Solar Cross Astrology, where I try and upload every day if everything goes well. So yeah, hope to see you there.
Awesome. And please, everybody, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching this video. Also know that I still have my Sacral Chakra Oracle deck for sale that you can find on Amazon. And you can also find me at thescenicroutastrology.com and on Instagram, The Scenic Route Astrology. And my podcast and all that is linked down below. So thank you, everybody, for being here. And leave us a comment where your Mars placement is and, if you got anything out of it. So we want to know. Cool.
All right. Thank you, Makayla.